Hey, and welcome to our second Design 2 weekly retrospective, obviously for week 2. So I'm just going to jump right into it here. In terms of the two things we're working on in design right now, there's the CAE task and the design task. For the CAE task, not really much to mention about disassembly. It's going well. It'll be finished next week. Most teams seem on track to be working well with that deadline. In terms of the computer lab, just a couple things that I wanted everyone to remember and be aware of. We introduced you to the CAST tutorials. Those are very high quality tutorials provided by NX that we have. You're the first year to have them, and it'll be very much to your benefit to try and solve them, or not solve them, but work through them. We gave you a list of tutorials that you should be trying to work on in case you don't have them. I'm just going to mention them here. Under the sketching heading, we'd like you to do sketching essentials, and under the feature modeling heading, we'd like you to do overview of modeling, datum features, extrude, revolve, and sweep profiles. So if you can get all those tutorials done for next week, you'll be really well set to get your part from the disassembly or your parts and really get working on them soon so that you're ahead of the curve. Now when it comes to the design aspect of the course, in lab this week we talked about submission 1. We really reinforced that we aren't judging your ideas. We're not interested in saying, this is a great idea, this isn't a bad idea, this isn't an evaluation of how good we think your ideas are. That's your job in this whole process. You're going to start with a bunch of ideas, narrow them down to 12, narrow them down to 3, and narrow them down to 1, and you'll be doing that with criteria, constraints, your own logic, calculations. What we're going to be evaluating is the diversity of those ideas in this first submission. So one thing that we do want from you guys is we want you to submit a diverse set of ideas. Having one variation of the same idea 12 times, even though that idea might be fantastic, is not as beneficial and productive as having 12 completely different ideas. So the more variation you can give us, the more diversity you can give us, the higher a grade you'll be getting. And the last thing that we're evaluating on is following the format. So in the design document, it's clearly laid out what you need to do. It gives you the number of pages. It tells you what needs to go on each page. Everything is there. As if you follow that to a T and you give us a diverse set of ideas, you'll get a great grade on this project. It's not about the ideas themselves. It's about the diversity, and it's about following the format. Remember that. One more thing about the computer lab I wanted to mention. Dan noticed, and I noticed this as well, that a lot of people are not finishing their sketches before they're going to extrude and revolve. That works sometimes, and the tools work perfectly fine, but we've noticed in certain circumstances that causes problems. So just as a reminder, try and finish your sketches before you move on to operating on those sketches with an extrude or a revolve, or if you're doing sweeps and profiles in the CAST tutorials, those as well. Last thing I wanted to mention was logbooks. We graded logbooks. Everyone in my sections got A+. I'm sure it was similar around all the other sections. All you needed to do was have a proper logbook and started using it. Few things I noticed that I wanted to mention about them was, first of all, page numbers. If you don't have a logbook that page numbers are included, you need to write the page numbers in. And along with that issue of page numbers, a second thing comes up, and that is people who decide to leave the backside of pages blank. That's fine, but if your logbook is manually or has the pages numbered in it already and those pages have numbers, then you need to cross them out or some way show that that page isn't going to be used, because you could come back later and write on that page, and that defeats the purpose of having a logbook where you can't rip out a page and hide stuff, because essentially you could make a mistake and then just decide to go back, find a blank page in between where something went wrong, and write in something that'll cover your butt. So basically, if you're skipping pages like that, make sure to cross them out and identify that those pages aren't being used. The other thing I wanted to mention was pencil. Don't write in pencil. It's a logbook. It's supposed to be a log of what you've done. If you can erase what you wrote and write something else in, that kind of defeats the purpose. And last thing with that is initialing pages. Once you're done a page, you should initial it and then move on. That way it's you certifying, yep, I wrote this page, everything on it is something that I approve of, and I'm moving on. So I think that's it for trying, give you some feedback and reinforce some of the things we did in the second week. Coming up in the third week, we've got obviously you're finishing your disassemblies. We'll be accepting submission 1, talking about the 12 to 3 submission, and getting you started on 2D drawing, which you'll have to know for a submission coming up in a week or 2, actually 2 weeks. So anyway, last thing is if you have any feedback on these video podcasts or video casts, something you're not liking, something you're liking, something you'd like to see, feel free to let me know. This is kind of an experiment and it'll only get better with feedback. So keep me in the loop and let me know what you think. That's all I got for now. Have fun working on design for your third week.